Hey, C Squared here. Today I wanted to talk about getting some good light for your videos without spending much money. So when I first started shooting video and doing things on YouTube, I did the same thing that most people do, which is I spent all my money that I had available on the camera and maybe a new lens and maybe some other accessories like microphones and things like that. And while those things are really important and helpful, and they certainly inspire your creativity, the most important thing really is the light. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, I've spent this money, but then now video lights are really expensive, and I don't really have any money left to spend on that. So thankfully, I had a friend at the time that I was doing some stuff with on YouTube, a channel called Guitar Breakdown, and Dave was a little bit more knowledgeable about lights and stuff. He actually was a lot more knowledgeable. He knew a lot more about photography and everything than I did, so he was able to kind of help me understand it and just kind of look for some cheap alternatives. So at the time, what I decided to do was get a whole bunch of these shop lights, and as it turns out, you could get a pretty good look with them if you just spend some time with it and try to understand the light. So these things are really cheap. They're like probably, I don't know, somewhere between 7 and maybe 12 bucks a piece at the most. And these are kind of flimsy. They're not real great, but they weren't things I was going to carry around, so I wasn't worried about getting really sturdy ones or anything. It's aluminum shell and just a little fixture with a clamp. And then I put some daylight balanced compact fluorescent bulbs in there, CFLs. And that turns out to be a pretty effective little way to light video, as I say, if you just spend some time with it. So what I want to do now is I'll describe the setup that I'm using in this scene, which is LED lights, video lights, and they're not like super high-end or anything. They're sort of a medium, moderate thing. I think I spent about $600 on these 3 lights that I'm using right now. But I want to compare that with a set of these little compact fluorescent equipped shop lights, clamp lights, and you'll see that you can get a really good scene. I'm just going to try to approximate this. It won't be exactly the same because, for one, these LED lights are just really a lot better. Their color rendering is really great. But compact fluorescent lights, or CFLs, are really not that bad. And they can really be handled and sort of finessed in the scene the same as any other light if you just spend some time with it and try to filter things in places and stuff like that. So I'll go through each little thing with the LEDs first. So in front, I'm using an Aperture 672 LED fixture with a little softbox, Easy Box softbox by Aperture on it. And that light is shining on this side of my face as a key light, and then it's also angled in such a way that it's bouncing off of a white foam board that I've just got sitting on a music stand right now, and that's providing a little bit of a fill over here on the other side. Now, my hair light, or rim light, is an Aperture F7. This is another little LED light, but I've got it turned to a tungsten balance, so 3200 Kelvin. As you can see, it has a little bit of an orange sort of color to it that's just kind of putting that little bit of a look on me. And I just kind of like that look, especially because on the background I've got a cooler temperature F7 pointed at the wall, which is actually gray, but that light being set to about, I think it's set to 9,000 or 9,500, whatever the highest Kelvin setting is on the F7, and that is providing a blue sort of look on that, what really is a gray wall behind me. So the little orangish color of the tungsten balance on the hair light is sort of contrasting with that and complementing it, I think. So that's my LED light setup that I'm using right now, and what I wanted to do is just kind of go back and see if I could make a comparable type of look with just using these shop lights and placing them in sort of the same general spots. So now we'll switch over to the shop lights and see how they look, and I'll show you what I did. Alright, so here are the shop lights. And right away you can see the colors are a little bit different. The color rendering of these lights is, I'm sure, a lot different than the LEDs. And then on top of that, the color temperatures are a little bit different. I had to reset the white balance on the camera. and the color of the back wall is not as blue because it's actually the same color temperature, or the light is the same color temperature as the key lights. Now I do have a different color temperature on the hair light, trying to replicate at least a little bit of that look, but it's on a bounce on the ceiling, so it's not quite the same. But nevertheless, I think I got a pretty decent quality of soft lighting for this scene, with 4 shop lights and 4 bulbs. So I don't know how much that would have been, but probably maybe 60, 70 bucks or something total. At the most, I would think, and compare that to $600 or more for the other setup. Because in the other setup, you had all the lights, and then also there were stands, and there's a softbox for one of the lights, and all this kind of stuff. Whereas in this case, I'm actually using mic stands that I already had, because I'm a musician, as you can see from the stuff in the background in a lot of these videos. I have a lot of mic stands and things like that, so I just clamped those clamp lights or shop lights to the mic stand. So in this case, you could kind of imagine that if you've just got anything you could clamp them to, then it becomes really easy to set them up, and you don't even really have to spend a lot of money. Now, the trouble comes in a little bit maybe in trying to position them to get a good look, but I'll show you how I've gotten sort of a soft look here, and in some ways kind of replicated my other look. So up front, I've got 2 of the shop lights as a key, and they're together as close as I could get them, and they're shining through a diffuser, which is just really the inside part of a 5-in-1 reflector type setup. Now, if you wanted to do this without having to spend any money, you could probably just find a white bed sheet or a curtain to shine it through, and that would diffuse them just fine. So that actually makes the light a lot softer than just pointing the bare bulbs at yourself. When you do that, you get real harsh shadows, and things just look kind of ugly and low budget. So I highly advise shining these lights through some kind of diffusion. And in this case, that diffusion material is pretty close. I mean, it's really clamped right to the little shop lights, but so you wouldn't want to walk off and leave something like this. It doesn't get real hot because it is just fluorescent bulbs, but nevertheless, you want to be careful with stuff like that and make sure you stick around close to it if you're going to get bulbs real close contact with, or in real close contact with any kind of diffusion material like this. So anyway, I've got it just clamped there, and it's all on a music stand so that it's in a good position to try and shine a bit of light down on my face in a soft way, and not to light myself too harshly from the front. Now, moving to the hair light, in this case, I'm actually just pointing the light at the ceiling, because when I point that light at me, it's just a little too much, it's too bright, and I couldn't get it far enough above me in this room. So I just ended up angling it at the ceiling and letting it come down on my shoulder that way. And it's really subtle. I mean, you don't see it a whole lot, but it does add just a little bit of a glow into the scene, kind of like what I did with the other light, just maybe not quite as obvious as the LED version. Okay, moving back to the background light. In that case, I'm also pointing a shop light sort of up and away, and it's not really bouncing, it's more feathering in this case. I'm feathering the look into the wall because I want it to be kind of hotter up in that corner and then fade into the far corner, so at a downward angle. So as you can see, it's pointed up and then it just sort of fades off. So all these lights kind of take a little messing around to try to get them positioned, but think of the savings. It's a pretty inexpensive setup. You can get a really good look, and I hope that encourages you to try and light your videos better if you're not able to spend a lot of money on video lights. Now, I've got a quick disclaimer here. I'm no real expert in this stuff. I would highly recommend that you watch videos by people who know more about it, or talk to some people who are actual lighting experts. There's some really good resources online, especially there's a channel called DSLR Video Shooter, and Caleb Pike is the guy on there, and he does some really cool stuff, and I've been really inspired by his lighting information. Especially, he does a lot of great reviews and stuff like that, so you might want to check that out. And I mean, there's just a lot of guys online who could tell you more about lighting than I can, but I just want to encourage you that you can do this without spending a lot of money if you just spend some time positioning the lights, and then think about how the light might need to be diffused or bounced off of another surface in order to just make that light softer, and because people just don't look good when they've got super hard light on them. Okay, so this video is being shot on a pretty nice camera. It's a Panasonic GH5 with a pretty nice lens. It's the 12 to 35 millimeter f2.8, so that's a pretty nice little setup for capturing light and capturing a good image, especially for video. So what I want to do is to show this with an old iPhone. My wife and I get probably some funny looks by the young folks who keep up with all the latest technology and have all the best new iPhones and everything, but this is a 5C, I think. And so what I'm going to do is switch over and do some video real quick with the 5C iPhone. So an old iPhone just shooting in 1080. I'll upscale it in this video to 4K, but it's just going to be crappy 1080 video. But you'll see how this actually still looks pretty good. The lighting is soft, and it just really helps the video a lot. So anyway, let's check that out. Okay, so this is the image from my old iPhone 5C, and as you can see, the lights still make the image look pretty nice, way better than it would have if I just walked in here and turned on some bedroom light or whatever and started shooting a video. Alright, I hope this video has been helpful in the idea that you could light your videos really well without having to spend a whole lot of money. And I really think the shop lights are a great option because the clamp makes them really versatile in where you can place them and what you can clamp them to. Maybe a lot of things that you already have in your home that you won't have to buy just to prop the light up. So the placement is really what's important, and diffusing the light or bouncing it when you need to. I'm really no expert in lighting. I just spend some time trying to get things to look appealing and in a way that the shadows aren't harsh, and I feel like there's enough contrast in the scene and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube that you could watch. So check out some of those resources like that, and I think you can get a long ways without having to spend a whole lot of money. And if you like this video, click like, subscribe, and come back, and I'll see you soon.